Hakadosh Bokadosh Shavuot Tov, Masechet Yoma Daf Ayin Amud Aleph 78-1. So Masechet Yoma Daf Ayin, the two dots, it's the second line, where we said that Begolel Sefer Torah, he used to come and he used to do the Gilila on the Sefer Torah, which means he used to roll the Sefer Torah. So says the Gemara, V'chol kach lama, why is it that they had to mention this? Was remember, the Kohen Gadol, after reading from the Sefer Torah, he used to say, more of that which is written here is what's actually on what I'm reading. Meaning that even though he only read a little portion, he said there's much more of what's written here. But he didn't read everything. So it says, in order not to be motzi la'az on the Sefer Torah. What does that mean in order not to be motzi la'az? Because when the people that are there are going to see that he's reading the third parasha Bal Peh, so then they could actually think, right, that the Be'emet, he's doing it from, that it's actually chaser from the Torah. So if we know the Sefer Torah is lacking, even if it's one letter, what happens? Pasul, it's disqualified. So now if he's going to start reading by heart, they're going to start saying, oh, 1 second, everything is doing, there's nothing written here. So they said, no, more than what's written here, it's actually written here, meaning that everything is actually written in the Sefer Torah. Okay? Now, what did you read? Remember that the Gemara here is calling the Sefer Bamidbar Chumash HaPekudim, the Chumash of countings, of numbers. Okay, that's why, by the way, it's called numbers, because if you literally translate Bamidbar, it means desert. It doesn't mean numbers. Yeah. But even in English today, we call Sefer Bamidbar numbers. Where did it come from? From this. But it's called Chumash HaPekudim. So it says, Ube'asor of Chumash HaPekudim, you're going to read it Bal Peh. Remember, Be'asor is here, this is a maftid, right? Because the maftid is in Parashat Pinchas, which is in Sefer Bamidbar. So says the Gemara, Amai Niglol V'nikre. So he says, 1 second, why do you have to read it Bal Peh? Right? Why don't you just do Gilila and then read it from inside the Sefer Torah? So Amaravuna B'Divishu, Amarav Shashat, if he shen golin Sefer Torah b'tzimum nekod hatzibur, you don't do it because of kod hatzibur. Yeah? This is for Parnasim. Yeah, you heard Baba Chaki. Yeah? You're not supposed to, what? Very, very important that it says that every Parnas needs to know they're not supposed to roll the Sefer Torah in public because of Kvod HaTzibur. Meaning, because Kvod HaTzibur. Imagine right now they're going to take up the Sefer Torah and it's not ready.
It happens all the time.
Right? And then they have to start rolling it from one place to another place to this. That's not Kvod HaTzibur. Yeah? No, but it's not supposed to be done. It happens. There are a lot of things happen in life, right? Geinam is a very big place also. You understand? There's a lot of things that happen. But what are you supposed to do? What are you supposed to do? Huh? It's Torah Tzibur, but he says it's not Kavod Tzibur. It's not Kavod. Yeah, it's not the Kavod. Yeah, it's not Kavod Tzibur, which means they have to prepare beforehand. Okay? So says the Gemara, fine. The night Achrina, bring another Sefer Torah. Right? Bring another Sefer Torah. Why? You have to use the same Sefer Torah. Bring another Sefer Torah, and then the second Sefer Torah will all be ready. So says the Gemara, right? Rav Huna bar Yehuda Amar, Rav Huna bar Yehuda says, Mishum pegamo shel Rishon. Because of the pegam of the first Sefer Torah. The Shakish Amar Mishum beracha shel Tzicha.
That's a muster there, buddy.
Right? Because of beracha shel Tzicha, which means like this. If you're going to now bring another Sefer Torah and you're going to read Be'asor, people are going to think that the first Sefer Torah is pagum. There's a defect in it because you're taking out another one. So because of that, right, you don't take out another one. Or says the Shakish, because of Beracha Shel Tzicha, which means that if you're going to bring another Sefer Torah, so then the Kohen Gadol again will have to make another Birkat Torah. That Birkat Torah is called the Beracha Shel Tzicha. You don't need it. So since you don't need it, right? So that's why we don't take another sefer. So says the Gemara in question number 1. Do we suspect for the pagam, for a defect? Says Yitzchak Nafcha. When you have Rosh Chodesh, Tevet, that comes out on Shabbat. How many sefarim are there? 3. Yeah, why do you have 3 sefarim? 1 for Shabbat, 1 for Rosh Chodesh, and 1 for Chanukah? Yeah, you cheated. Yeah, I want to ask them without looking.
Sorry.
Yeah, okay. Guilty. Yeah, 100%. Right, so what happens? You have 3 sefarim. Now it says here, right? Mevin shalosh torot vekorin. Achad binyanon shel yom, echad shel Rosh Chodesh, ve'echad shel Chanukah. So what? That's what we're talking about. We're talking about on Shabbat, right? We're talking about Shabbat, right? So the question is that from here you see you can read from any Sefer Torah, and there's no chashash that we're going to say. There's no suspicion we're going to say when they take all the Sefer Torah. We're going to say the first one is pasul. We don't say that. So answers the Gemara. Tzlata gavre betzlata sifre lekap gama. 3 people in 3 different sefarim is not a pagam. Chad gavra b'tei safra, right? Sifre ikap gam. But if it's 1 person in 2 different sefarim, it's a gam. Which means like this: if right now we're going to have another Sefer Torah, for example, let's say for Maftir, it's Shabbat Rosh Chodesh or Shabbat, whichever one it is, Shekalim, Shabbat Achot. So since it's 2 different sefarim, but the 2 different people getting the aliyah. So it's 2 different people getting the aliyah. There's no pagam. Why? It's a different person. But imagine I got the aliyah in the first Sefer Torah, and then I get an aliyah in the second Sefer Torah. What are you going to say? The first Sefer Torah is pasul. So same thing here. Who's getting the aliyah? It's a Kohen Gadol. So because of that, since it's 1 person in 2 sefarim, it would be looked at as a pagam.
Before looking at the
Yes, beracha before, beracha after. Okay. Fine. Then, after reading everything, the Kohen Gadol would make 8 blessings. Okay, Tanu Rabbanan, we learned in the Braita. Ala Torah, kederesh mevarachim b'Beit HaKnesset, which means the bracha on the Torah, just like he does in the Beit HaKnesset. Hashanat lanu Torah Torah Tamet. Ala avodah, ve'ala hoda'ah, ve'al mechilat ha'avon. Right? So those are ala avodah, ve'ala hoda'ah, mechilat ha'avon, ketikna, just like it's normally done. Right? The standard blessings. Ve'ala migdash b'fnei atzmo, on the Bet HaMikdash, on extra bracha. Ve'al kohanim as an extra bracha, and on Yisrael as an extra bracha. Ve'al shar tefillah, and then another one for the rest of the tefillah. That's what he used to do. Okay? Tanu Rabbanan, we learned in the Braita. Ushar tefillah, rina techina bakasha milefanecha amlecha Yisrael shetzrichim livasha. Right? What is shar tefillah? He used to say it was a rina utchina. It was like a supplication in front of you for the nation of Israel that they need to be answered. Ve'chotem needs to finish shomea tefillah. It was a special blessing brought down. Shomea tefillah. And after every single one of these blessings, so then, right, that means after he finished all these blessings, he would bring a Sefer Torah from his house and then he would read it in order to show, right, the yofyo to the Rabbim. Right here it says the entire concept of the Sefer Torah. The Ktivat Sefer Torah, they used to do it on a beautiful parchment, so therefore he used to show it to everybody. Fine. Next. It says over here in the 2 dots, if somebody is going to see the Kohen Gadol reading the Parashiyot, he cannot see the Serefat, part of his Serefat, part of his Sayyid and Nisrafim, and the opposite. But since they were too far away from each other, you have to make a choice. Do you see the Kohen Gadol, right, reading and doing all these things, or do you see the burning of the part of the Sayyid of the Nisrafim? So it says, Lo Mimnesh Eno Rashai, just because you can't. So it says, Pshita, obviously, right, what Isur would be that a person cannot see 2 things in one shot. What's the problem? You can't dance at 2 weddings. I know a lot of people that do it all the time.
Yeah, but it's more trouble than it's worth.
Oh, yeah, but there's a lot of people they dance at a few weddings. They're here, they're there, they're. At the end, what happens? They're nishta hein and nishta there. What does that mean? Oh, you're not there. Yeah. He speaks from experience. Yeah. So what happens? So what? Obviously, what's the isur? Says no. I would have thought to say like Resh Shakish. The Resh Shakish says Resh Shakish. En ma'avidin al mitzvot. What does that mean? You're not allowed to pass by mitzvot, right? So too here the same thing. That means if you're going to be at the time of the Kriyat Torah and then it's Srefa, it's a mitzvah. So you're not allowed to be ma'avid from one to another. So my mitzvah berova madra melech, to be as one group, meaning the bigger the group, the bigger of the mitzvah. So therefore, you're not allowed to leave it to go to somewhere else. Kamash Malan comes teach you that there's no yisur in doing so, because the reason why is because it doesn't look that you, right, again, it's only just because, not because there's an isur of just looking at both, it's just it's too far away. So it's a logistics problem, not because Bemet there's a halachic problem. So what is it? I would have thought to say that maybe you're not allowed to leave, because once you have a mitzvah there, you have to stay with a mitzvah. You're not supposed to go somewhere else. Kamash Malan, that you're allowed to actually stay there. No problem. 5. Mishnah. Ayin Mud Aleph, in the middle. Mishnah says, Im bevigde vutz koreh. Yeah, if he wants, he could actually read it, bevigde vutz, right? So he's allowed to actually read it in the clothing of Tishtan. So then what happens? Kidesh Yadav Raglav, he used to do Kiddush Yadayim Raglayim, which is washing the hands and the feet. Pashat used to take off the clothing. Yarad used to go down. The Tabal used to do Tevilah. Alav Sapag, he used to come up and dry himself. Tevilo Bigdei Zav, and he used to bring him by the Bigdei Zav. Remember, this is now the third Tevilah of the Kohen Gadol. He used to bring him the golden clothing. Velavash, and then he used to put them on. Again, with Kiddush Yadav Raglayim, is remember, Kiddush Yadayim Raglayim was always done before the Tevilah and after the Tevilah. Okay, so that's why there was 5 Tevilot, 10 Kiddush Yadayim Raglayim. Yatzah, he used to go out. So then he used to do the eyes, the rams, his own and for the nation. The 7 korbanot of Musaf. These are the words of Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Akiva says, in Tamid Shel Shachar, where the Tamid Shel Shachar, Yukrevin, right, they used to bring these 7 kivasim at the beginning of the day. Upara Ola, and then the Para Ola, which are the korbanot Musafim. The Sayyid and Asab Achutz, also the Sayyid, which is done on the outside of the Chal inside of the Azara. Hayukrevim were brought with the Tamid Shel Ben Arbaim, with the afternoon prayer, with the afternoon korban. Okay? After doing this, Kiddush Yadav Raglav, again, he used to go down and do Kiddush Yadav Raglaim. Pashat used to take off his clothing. Yarad, he used to go down to the mikveh. V'taval, he used to do the Tevilah. V'alav Sapag, he used to come up and dry himself. So now there's the 4th one. Heviulo Bigdei Lavan, again, he used to bring him Bigdei Lavan. V'lavash, he used to put them on. Kiddush Yadav Raglaim, again, Kiddush Yadav Raglaim. V'nichnas, he used to go into the Kodesh HaKodeshim to take out the kaf of the ketoret and the machta and the shovel of the coals that he placed there earlier. Kiddush Yadam, then again he used to do Kiddush Yadam Raglaim. Pashat, again, take off his clothing. Yarad, go down to the mikveh. Taval used to do Tevilah. Alav Sapag, come up and he used to dry himself. This is the 5th one. Heviulo Bigdei Zav, he used to bring them the golden clothing. He used to put them on, and then again Kiddush Yadam Raglaim. And Nichlas, he used to go into the Chal in order to do the ketoret of the Ben Arbaim and La'ativ et Nerot. Okay, which is to do the Nerot. Right? Then the Kiddush Yadav Raglaim, again he used to do Kiddush Yadav. Pashat used to take off his clothing. Heviulo Bigdei Tzmo, he used to put on his own clothing. Velavash used to put on his own clothing, and then Melavinu Tov Beto. They used to come and they used to accompany him to his house. V'yom Tov haya oseh lo avav b'shah sheyatza b'shalom mikol shem. He used to make a Yom Tov, a Seudah, right? When for his friends, right? When he used to come out alive in one piece. So when he used to come out alive in one piece, he used to make a big party, and that's why it's called Simchat Kohen. Simchat Kohen, or Simchat Kohenim, right? After Kippur, the day after Kippur is called Simchat Kohen. So usually there was a minhag, and we used to have it. They used to do a Seudah here. What? No. Seudat Yitro is Parashat Yitro. That's only Tunisians. Yeah, Tunisians. That's not Simchat Kohen of all the Kohanim. You understand? Now we understand everything. Capish? Okay, fine.
I never done this.
Okay. So here it is. This is Simchat Kohen. We used to actually we had a Kohen that he used to live here, and he always used to give me money to buy the breakfast the next morning. Always. Yeah? 100%. Yeah. Simchat Kohen. That's what it was.
So many defects have in all the avodah.
Says the Gemara, Ibai lehu. We're going to ask the following questions. This is Gemara on Ayin Amud Aleph on the bottom. Ibai lehu, they ask the following question. Hechi ka'amar, how did they say, Im Tamid Shel Shachar, Yukrevin, they used to bring the 7 kivasim, the 7 sheep with the Tamid Shel Shachar. He says, Upara olah v'seyin na'asa b'chutz, with Tamid Shel Ben Arbaim. And the para olah, the bull of the burnt offering, and the seed and the he-goat, which was done on the outside of the zera, was brought with Tamid Shel Ben Arbaim. Well, Dilmar, maybe you have to say haki kamer. That's silly. This im Tamid Shel Shachar yukrevin. They used to bring the 7 kivasim with the Tamid Shel Shachar. Upara olah ba'dayu, and the para olah was also with it. And then v'sayin na'asa b'chutz im Tamid Shel Ben Arbaim. The seed which is done on the outside would be done with Ben Arbaim, which means like this. One more time. Let me take the Mishnah. The Mishnah says that he used to do the 7 shiva kivasim min hashana. These are the words of Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Akiva argues and he says, no, im Tamid Shel Shachar yukrivin. He used to bring these 7 sheep of the korbanot. He used to bring it with the Tamid Shel Shachar. Now the Gemara, the Mishnah says, upara olah, and then it says v'saida na'asa b'chutz. Hare ayu krovim with the Tamid Shel Ben Arbaim. Now 1 second. Do you have to read it upara olah dot, meaning I put there the pasek, yeah, v'haki pasek, yeah. So you put the dot, and then by putting that dot, it goes beforehand. Or do I do the dot after the first part? And now para ola is together with a sa'id and asa b'chutz, which means for sure the sa'id is going to be done with the tamid shel me'abayim. Because it says, the sa'id and asa b'chutz, so you could mean tamid shel me'abayim. The question is, where do you put the words of para ola? Is para ola going backwards or is it going forwards? That's the question. Okay? So says the Gemara, the two, and furthermore, para ola, according to Rabbi Eliezer, the shaire, that we didn't mention it, when did you do it? Right? When would the Kohen Gadol do it? The two, and furthermore, another doubt, Ben Rabbi Eliezer, Ben Rabbi Akiva, whether according to Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Akiva, emurei chatat. When would he do the emurei chatat, which are the fats of the inner chataot, the chataot which are done on the inside, which needs to be brought to the inside? When would they do that? When did they do that? So says the Gemara, Amar Rava says, Lo mishkacha la mitakanta, right? We don't see the Seder Avodat Kipurim, which is brought in the Shlemut of the Mishnayot. Ela or Rabbi Eliezer Tana Betana is Shmuel, or Rabbi Akiva the Tosefta. He says only like Rabbi Eliezer, the way that they taught in the academy of the Shmuel, or it was like Rabbi Akiva in the Tosefta, which means that we didn't have a full thing in the Mishnayot. In the Mishnayot, it was still lacking part of the order. It was more order or everything which was mentioned like Rabbi Akiva in the Tosefta, that there it did have the entire order, or everything like Rabbi Eliezer in Tana V'Ishmael. Tosefta is the Mishnayot which were not added in the Mishnayot. It's like a Mishnah, which was a Mishnah Chitzonit, it's called, which is basically with Toseftas are like Braitot, but they were more Mishnayot because it was on the level of Mishnah, but they weren't brought in as Mishnayot, so they were left outside. So those are called the Tosefta. Tosefta.
You also,
that's a
you
Tosefta.
also have Sifri and Sifra.
Right? No. So one more time. So basically we have over here, right, where we had three different questions, right, three different doubts. When were they done? So we answered that Rava comes and he says we didn't find the full version in a Mishnah, or we found in Rabbi Eliezer like the taught the Academy of Shmuel, or like Rabbi Akiva and the Tosefta. Tetanad ve'Shmuel, Rabbi Eliezer says Yatzav Yasa Elo ve'Elam. He used to go out, he used to do his ram and the ram of the people and the emurei chatat. But the paraola, Shiva Kvasim, Sari Nasa Bechutz was done with Tamid Shel Me'amayim. That was the shita of Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Akiva says in the Tosefta, what is that? The time was learned on the right. Rabbi Akiva, when Rabbi Akiva says, paraola v'Shiva Kvasim Tamid Shel Shachar, the paraola and the Shivat Kvasim was brought with the Tamid Shel Shachar. Shneimar milvad olat boker asher olat tadmid. Ve'achar kach, and afterwards was done avodat hayom, right? Which is basically the agralot of the seinim and the shchitat of the pnimiyot, right, and all these other things as well.
What is a chart?
Yes, there's a chart over there if somebody wants, right? The way of doing the akava.
Look at that. That would take some study.
Yeah, here's the chart.
Yeah, we have it here.
Okay, very good. Perfect. Yeah. Ayin Amud Bet, okay, 70b. So now it says, and afterwards, the Sa'id was done on the outside. Shneimar, and afterwards and afterwards the Tamid Shel Me'abayim. So now we're going to have to try to understand what is the reasonings behind Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Eliezer. Why is it that they argue? So my Tamad Rabbi Eliezer, what's the reasoning of Rabbi Eliezer? Why is it that the Seder HaKorbanot of the Musaf are brought with Shachrit? Usually you do Shachrit and then you do Musaf. Here it's not like that. So why? So it says Avid Kidichti was he's doing that which was written. Avi Bereisha the Torah Kohanim, right? At the beginning, he used to do that which was in the Torah Kohanim. The Hadar Avid, the Chumash Pekudim, and afterwards he used to do the Chumash Pekudim. Rabbi Akiva, and according to Rabbi Akiva, just like he said, it says Milivat Olat Boker Shel Olat Tamid. So you see, for me, the Musafin was with Tamid Shel Shachar. That's why. So according to Rabbi Akiva, it's because that's the way it's written in the pasuk. And according to Rabbi Eliezer, it's because first it said the Reisha Torah Kohanim, right? Remember, what is Torah Kohanim? Vayikra. So I told you before. Sifra Sifri, Torah Kohanim. Torah Kohanim is Vayikra. Right? It's like the Midrash on Vayikra.
Is that Leviticus?
Torah Kohanim. Yes, Leviticus is Vayikra. Okay? The Hadar, and then afterwards he used to do the Chumash Pekudim, which is Bamidbar. Okay? Yeah. No, in all of Vayikra. Vayikra, the beginning of Vayikra. Yeah, all the Korbanot, it's Vayikra. Rabbi Eliezer, and according to Rabbi Eliezer, this Milevad Chatat HaKippurim, what is he going to do with it? How he needs it, on on that which this is going to atone, this is also going to atone, which means the Sa'id, which is atoning on the inside, and the Sa'id, which is atoning on the outside, right? It's going to be the same atonement, okay? Which is basically, it says over here that it's on Tum'ah, right? Tum'ah, which was known or not known, right? So he says which was known. So Rabbi Yehuda Omer Mishmor, Rabbi Yehuda says in his name, right? Echad karev im tamid shel shachar, v'shisha im tamid shel b'layim. He says, you know what? I'm going to make a compromise. We had a machloka between Eliezer and Akiva. When was the 7 sheep's brought of Korban Musaf? Whether it's brought in the morning, like Eliezer, or is going to be brought in the afternoon. Right? Here, Rabbi Yehuda makes a compromise. 1 was brought in the morning, and then another 6 was brought in the afternoon. You split
Similar
it up.
to the Devar Torah in the bulletin. There was
Yes.
a thing on that.
You're splitting up. It's
You
like
saw that?
you're making a compromise, right? So 1 is going to be in the morning, and then another 6 later on, and that's it. No, the opposite. 6 in the morning and 1 with afternoon. Right? But again, it was still the compromise. What? Korbanot Musaf. Musaf. There's a Korban for Musaf. No. Musaf is on every single Yom Tov.
Yom Tov.
Of course.
Okay.
Kippur is a Yom Tov.
Okay.
We're not talking about Kippur. Yeah, there's Kippur.
Oh, in Kippur you have like 3 Musaf, no?
No, this is
No, you
Korban
have in
Musaf.
Shacharit, you have in Mincha.
I'm not understanding. What? So they said, so what's the reasoning of, right? My time out the Rabbanan. What's the reasoning of the rabbis? Tzrei krae k'tiv, because there's 2 different psukim. Ketiv, it says in the pasuk, milevad olat haboker. Uchtiv, and it's written also, which there obviously is talking about the korbanot musafim. So from there we're learning that the musafim was brought with the morning sacrifices. Uchtiv, and it's written, that he's going to go out and he's going to do his avodah. So from there that it's written there, it's mashma, that the olat ha'am, which is basically between the musafim, is talking about that it's going to be later on. And avodat hayom hilkach, therefore, avi minayu hach, how minayu? So you have to do them both. Do a little bit in the morning and a little bit in the afternoon. What is the machloka between them? Rabbi Yehuda holds, right? Avid chad, you have to do 1. Because it says in the pasuk, and then afterwards you do avodat hayom. Right? Why? Maybe the kohen gadol will become very, very weak, right? And therefore, because that's why you have to bring the yikar and kapara, the kippurim, earlier on. Rabbi Lazar Shimon Savar, once you start, Avid Shisha, you have to do 6, not 1. Remember, the machlok between them was, you do, again, according to these 2 opinions, we split up the Korbanot Musafim. Part you do in the morning, part you do afternoon. The question is, do you do 1 and 6 or 6 and 1? That's the machloket. So here he's saying, according to Rabbi Lazar Shimon, he says that once you started already, you have to do 6 in the morning, right? Dilma Pasha, because maybe he's going to become afterwards, there's going to be a pshia, and he won't be able to do it. To do avodat hayom, he's very, very quick. So therefore, even if he's going to become weakened, he'll strengthen himself to finish it off. So therefore, you have to do it 6 in the morning and 1 later on. But according to everybody, though, there's only going to be 1 ram. Kiman, who does this call like Rabbi? The Tanya was learned in a Braita. Rabbi says, the 1 ram that's written here. Is the same ram which is written in Chumash Pekudim and Bamidbar. Remember, whenever it says Chumash Pekudim, the numbers, it's Bamidbar. Bamidbar is numbers. But Zav Shimon says, Shnei elimim. No, there was 2 elim. 1 which is written in Vayikra, and 1 which is written in Bamidbar. That means basically like this. There was a machloket. It's written the ram also in Vayikra, Leviticus, and it's written the ram also in Bamidbar. Was it the same one or 2 different ones? That's the machloket. So my Tama, the Rebbe, what's the reasoning of Rebbe? The Chtiv was, it says, Ailechad, 1. According to Rabbi Eliezer and Shimon, Mayachad doesn't mean 1. Miyuchad shebedro, it just means that it's the best 1. It doesn't mean that there's only 1, there's 2. The Rebbe, and according to Rebbe, Nafkale, he learns it from Mivchar Nidrechem, right? That smash over there, you have to take one of the best of the animals. That's why it says Mivchar, from the best of your oaths. Rabbi Eliezer and Shimon, he says, no, 1 is the Chovah and 1 is the Nidava. One of them is Korbanot Chovah, as an obligation, and one of them, the next pasuk, is for a Nidava, which is a present, Utzrich, and you need both of them. You need both psukim to teach you that you always have to take the best of the korbanot and not from the korbanot nedava. Okay, we're just going to finish over here, the 2 dots. Right, he comes to the Ol Moed. Lama uba, why did he come to the Ol Moed exactly? He already finished the avodah. In order to take out the kaf and the machta. Remember that the kaf is the spoon and the machta is of the coals, the pan of the coals. Everything is on the seder except for this pasuk. Stop here.